Hi.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
I'm joined by Betty Lou today.
Haha, Betty Lou.
Betty Lou is not happy with me.
Why is that?
Actually, I was going to say I don't know, but I do know. She's she's waiting for her treats.
Mm. Are those the hemp ones?
These, as a matter of fact, they are. These are Bark and Spark hemp calming chews, um, and you can tell that she likes them. These chews she will do pretty much anything at all. Um, I mean, look at her. She's very, I
Yeah.
don't, you probably can't see her, but she's very intent.
Yeah, I see it.
She's very, very intent. Up here, down here, over here. Oh, sorry. Just messing around with her. She wasn't liking that. Now, wait a minute. You say something?
Hello?
Oh, okay. So it's not picking up these. I thought this was clearly not. Hello.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you fine. I thought these were
Oh,
working, but they don't seem to be.
okay.
You're coming out of the out of the phone.
Okay. So, what is the topic for today?
Well, I've been thinking about the future. I shared with you, and I'll share with everyone here. Um, this book, "Can Legal Weed Win?" Can legal published last year. It's got me thinking about the future. Um, it's got me thinking longer term than say 5 years. I've been thinking 5 years out, and the end game is going to look so different. After reading this, I'm really thinking the end game looks so different from what we can think of now.
And in what aspect? So, well, first of all, I guess we could start
Well,
by like, what do you think is the common conception of
well,
what?
okay. So these guys take a macroeconomic view. That it's two economists. I never took an economics class in college, so um, I don't know much about economics, but I was able to understand the book except for one or two graphs that I couldn't gather. Um, but the basic premise is that, there's basically there's a quantity, a demand level for weed, right? Oh, and they call it weed. They don't call it cannabis. They don't call it marijuana. They call it weed because everybody calls it weed. So they're just like, we're going to call it weed. And so, um, oh, hi, Betty. So there's a demand for weed, and that demand for weed is satisfied by legal weed and illegal weed. And so in DC, you could say, it's medical, it's the gray market, and then the totally market, right? Okay,
Hmm.
so there's a there's a basic there's a demand, and that demand may grow over time, but it's pretty set. And so, really, what we're playing with is what's the percentage within that demand that the various markets have. And so, for instance, one of the things they say, if you want to increase the legal market share, then you should do things like increase the hours that the businesses can operate, ease the regulations. So, for instance, here in DC, they're doing all those things. They're making it now. So, for instance, here in DC, if you're a DC resident, you can self certify your medical cannabis use, and you can go to a regulated dispensary today, and you can register today, and you can purchase today. That's how easy they've made it. And so that, that for the council, I mean, they want to see the taxes and whatever, so they want to increase that the regulated market share. And so Anyway, so, but the question is long term, because once the feds legalize it, I mean, chances are there's going to be interstate commerce. And now it may be, it may be regulated, for instance, like alcohol is today. But you think about alcohol today, the market, very mature. What's the percentage of the market that's illegal moonshine? It's pretty damn small, you know? And so the legal market for weed might get to be like that at some point in the future. And they're looking at, they're looking 30 years out. Their ultimate projections are 30 years out. So it's going to become legal. So there's going to be interstate commerce is going to be allowed. So you'll be able to transport it, across state lines. And then what's going to happen is agribusiness. What's really the difference between weed and tulips or almonds or whatever? It's an agricultural product. Once agribusiness gets into it, they're going to start driving the costs down because that's what they can do. They know how to grow stuff, and they know how to grow stuff efficiently at large scale. And so what's going to happen ultimately is there's going to be a reshaping of the marketplace, and big business is ultimately the large industrial scale is ultimately going to win on price. And they're economists, so they talk a lot about the cost and whatever. And so ultimately it's going to end up looking like, I think it's going to end up looking like alcohol. The illegal market's going to be very, very small. The big market's going to be dominated by some pretty big powerhouse players. And then for me, I'm thinking, where does that leave the small businessman, the small business person, man or woman? Where does it leave the small business owner and the entrepreneur? And I think, you can't. It's pretty hard to fight industrial scale. And I think the way to do it is to go the other way, and that's to go craft. And I define craft as small batch or hand by hand. And so I can only look at the product that's given to me. So we've defined here at East Coast Amsterdam, we've defined what craft is. Craft is it's hand trimmed and hand packed flour. It's solventless concentrates, and I don't think that water is a solvent. So bubble hash is craft. Whole flower edibles, whole flower tinctures, those are the kinds of things that are craft. And I think that's ultimately where people can, high quality craft in and of itself does not define high quality, but high quality craft I think ultimately can compete against the big boys and girls in the multi-state operators. The multi-state operators, once they hook up with real agribusiness, I don't know, man. And the interesting, they talk about the price in here. The price of almonds, I mean, you can get a ton of almonds for like $7,000, and almonds are really, really expensive. And a ton of weed is like, I don't know, $1 million. Sorry, I exaggerate. It's not $1 million, but whatever it is, it's huge. The numbers are, maybe it is, I don't remember, but the numbers might be. The numbers are big. The numbers are real big, and that's going to get driven down when over the years. Now, we're not talking, they're not looking at 5 years, they're looking at 20 years, 30 years. And so, for the long haul, there's a lot of money to be made between now and then for people. But I really think longevity, Betty Lou, no, I think in terms of longevity, craft is the marketplace for small businesses to stake out, because I think that's going to be the defining difference. I mean, I look at the medical market here in Virginia, and there's no craft cannabis flower is available in the medical market. None whatsoever. They have some that I would consider high consumer grade, but it's actually been machine trimmed. They do an initial machine trim, and so that's not craft. There's nothing available in the medical marketplace here in Virginia that's craft. So I think there's room. In DC there is, there's a pretty robust medical marketplace in DC, and there are seven different cultivators, and one of them, Alternative Solutions, that they're committed to craft. That's going to be their defining difference. They recently got into they got a license to be in the West Virginia market, the regulated medical marketplace in West Virginia that's just opening up, and they're establishing a grow facility there. And they've decided, they had a chance to build a new growth facility and to put in all the latest high-tech machines that could trim and that could pack their product. And they decided, no, there's nothing that can do it as well as by hand. And so we're doubling down. And as a matter of fact, we're not going to ask the question again. That is to say, we've decided we're about the craft. And so they've committed to craft, and I think that's going to make them stand out. They're never going to be huge, they're not going to be able to compete with TrueLeaf, but they're going to have people who are enthusiastic about their product. I mean, I know that for me, if I'm walking into a DC regulated dispensary and I'm using my own money to buy something, I know who I'm buying, and it's not just because they're a sponsor. I should acknowledge they are a sponsor for East Coast Amsterdam, but that's the weed that I like. They got what I like. I mean, why would I go anywhere else? And I think that's going to be the difference. And so people need to look to see how can they set themselves apart, because there's so much commercial. So I look at cannabis, there's craft cannabis, and then there's various levels, and it's sort of murky in my mind. But I think there's craft, and then there's what I would call consumer grade, and then there's what I would call commercial grade. And in terms of flower, commercial grade has been harvested. The exterior trichomes have been absolutely harvested. And not so much with the consumer grade. But what's my thought? I don't know where it was going. I don't know, Travis. That one just went, woo!
No,
Hi, folks. We're talking loud.
Yeah, you were talking about the when the multi-state operators get big, basically.
Yeah, well, and they're all, and like for instance here in Virginia, I mean these are big operations. And they're actually not that big, but in the grand scheme of things, there are some that are bigger. The folks that built out up in Canada when it was legal up in Canada, just huge facilities. But anyway, they're industrial scale. They're not messing around. It's really not, I don't want to say it's not in their interest, but they're going for the masses. Their new stores that they're building, I went into the one over in Fairfax that just opened recently, and it has 10 pickup windows. 10 pickup windows. They're not using the pickup windows now. They've built it in anticipation of the recreational marketplace. And their model is going to be, I can almost guarantee this, their model for recreation is going to be, you must place an order online and you come into the window and we will give it to you at the window. Yes, Betty Lou? Oh, you want some of this? You generally don't like it. And we will give it to you at the window. You may or may not even be able to go into the dispensary part. That might remain medical. And so they're really pushing big, this is industrial scale, 10 pickup windows is not a small operation.
Well, not at all.
No. And they're pushing right now, they're pushing everybody to use the app. They really want people to get comfortable using the app and ordering on the app and not having to interact with anyone in the staff to get any questions about the product.
Because it probably saves them money doing it that way.
It saves them money ultimately. I mean, they made a decision. Betty Lou, you're really ruining my buzz here. With this new one in Fairfax, so usually their stores, they have one pharmacist on duty. And so we're talking here, this is the medical marketplace. They have one pharmacist on duty. The pharmacist that's on duty has to approve every dispense. So every bag of product that's going out has to be signed off by the pharmacist. So they have a pretty big job. They're overseeing the other folks who are doing it. This is actually the first store in Virginia that they have staffed with 2 pharmacists on site. So there's going to be a pharmacist in the back dealing with the back room stuff. But then they're going to have a pharmacist on the floor in order to answer questions, because in Virginia, under the medical marketplace, only a pharmacist may provide a recommendation. And what Beyond Hello has done is they've said that because of that rule, their bud tenders will not talk to customers. If you go in and you start asking questions about the actual product, they say, hey, you got to talk to Joe, and Joe comes over and Joe will talk to you. But what you don't know is that Joe's actually a pharmacist. And so if they only have one pharmacist on duty and he's in the back room, then, you know, he's got to break away and he's coming out to talk to you. Anyway, so they're staffing an extra pharmacist on the floor. You know, that's going to cost them $150,000, $200,000 in salary, because pharmacists, they make a pretty piece of change. So, yeah, they want to drive the costs down, employee costs down. But I think that model is not going away. You know, Beyond Hello is not going to go away, and their 10 pickup window dispensaries are going to proliferate. You know, they have 6 facilities, or they will have 6 facilities here in Northern Virginia. And then the other license holders are throughout the state. And when we finally go recreational adult use, I'm sure they'll be ready to meet the need, but they'll be ready to meet the need with industrial scale, you know, stuff that's been machine trimmed and machine packaged. And I mean, it's evidently amazing what machines can do, but all that jostling, it does damage the exterior trichomes. And if you're in it, you know, if you're toking because you like the medicinal impact, whatever that happens to be for you, that stuff is in the trichomes. All the cannabinoids, all the terpenes are in the trichomes. And if the trichomes on the exterior, that's the most, those big, those round-headed trichomes, those are where the medicine is. And if they've been knocked off, then you're not getting your meds. And so that's one of the reasons why I like craft. I mean, yeah, it looks prettier, but I mean, I think the truth of the matter is, with craft cannabis, I know what I should have, and I can analyze it. Like, if you give me a distillate, I mean, how did they make that? Did you pay enough attention in science class to really understand what's going on? Because I'm telling you, it's not something that you can cook up in your kitchen, the distillate. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm in favor of craft. Anyway, I think that'll be the differentiator for people, is going to be craft. And so businesses that turn to, there's a local, one of the Initiative 71 vendors that I know, they've recently rebranded as a craft cannabis business, because I think they're seeing the light. So I think there's going to be more people that are doing that. So that's my take for right now.
What was the name of the business that rebranded?
Green Label DMV, which actually before that they were Green Label DC, but they've rebranded totally to the Craft Connection or something like that. But I mean, I think what they see is the handwriting on the wall in that, you know, the way to differentiate, because there's so much product out there. So how do you differentiate? Because most of the product that we see at East Coast Amsterdam, I would consider to be consumer grade. We do see some craft stuff, and each of our sponsors, pretty much everybody has at least one craft product. You know, it might be whole flower edibles or RSO oil, Rick Simpson oil, which I would consider to be craft, or like Alternative Solutions with their flower. Their flower is just awesome. So you know, there's folks out there making the pivot, and I think that's the way to stand out. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people buying, and you know, I think we do. And one of the things that the book talks about, Can Legal Weed Win? It talks about the price differentiator, and that, you know, some people are willing to pay for legal and some people aren't, and there's different things that you're willing to pay for. You know, for instance, if in the market, I might be willing to pay for ease of use and delivery, and maybe a good selection, Yeah. So I mean, craft is in everything. I mean, cost is a determiner. So ultimately, what we have to have is reasonably priced craft. I don't know that you can have craft that maybe you can. I don't know that's going to be able to compete with this big industrial wheat. I don't know in terms of price. I'm talking. So yeah, we're going to have to be able to drive the cost down a little bit on craft, but you know, what are they going to have? It's going to have to be good. It can't be shitty craft. You know, for instance, I love breaking it out. Here's a bud of this is craft wheat. I know because I grew it myself. It was one plant, but you know, look at it. I mean, it's all right, and I'm smoking it, and it's actually pretty good. And I like the terps, but I've grown to like it, Travis, since the other time we smoked it. But I mean, it doesn't look that good, and if you were paying money, you wouldn't pay a whole lot for it. You'd probably, it's a little wispy. So what I'm saying is that craft in and of itself as a label doesn't necessarily mean high quality. So you need to have high quality craft products that are reasonably priced. And I think people will be willing to pay a surcharge. And, oh, and the other thing that helps, and they talk about this in the book, it helps to have a good story. You know, if your business has a good story. And I know when I'm writing about businesses at East Coast, it's easier to get excited about a business that has a really good story and to talk about that. And I think people make purchases on that. You know, you want to support a business for a particular reason because you like their story or the story of the founder or whatever. You know, there's a regulated medical dispensary here in Washington, D.C. That is a Black-owned union shop. So the owner or the owner team is all Black, and the employees are part of a union. And that to me is a great story. And if people knew about that, you know, the granola eating, Birkenstock wearing people like me will come out and support that kind of market. Yeah. I don't eat granola though, but I do wear Birkenstocks.
All right. Well, I have to run actually.
Well,
handle some business.
here I have been pontificating. I think I'm living up to your Professor Cannabis title.
I think you are too, man. I think you've been have, to be honest. But
Well, Travis, it's been good talking to you. Let's see, I'll figure out how to save this, and then I don't know what we can do with it, but I'm sure we'll think of something. And have a great day, man.
all right, no problem. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna send you. I'm almost done with the episode. I'm gonna send you before the end of the day. All right.
Super. Hey, everybody, stay lifted. We'll see you around.
All right.